Good morning, X. So we're going to be jumping into a movie review today of one of the all-time great movies that's about to probably be nominated for the Oscars and probably win Best Picture. Honestly, though, it probably should be considered over many of the films that they've considered in recent years. Anyway, though, we're talking about Kraven the Hunter, sitting at an incredible, if I zoom in here, you can barely see it, 14% from the critics on Rotten Tomato. But what is this? 69%. 69% from the regular people? Okay. I'm going to keep an open mind. I usually say that the critics, I don't always trust the critics. So I went to see this. They might have been right. Look, I had a fun time, but I didn't have a Venom time. That's how I'm going to put it. I went into this movie possibly thinking, you know what? This might be so utterly absurd, violent, over the top. I might walk out of this being like, that was like Venom, but with updated for Kraven. And that's not how I felt. Essentially, this is the final movie in the Sony the Sony Spiderman universe, because the wonderful world of movie and content IP licensing. They still have the rights to some of the Spider-Man stuff, including some of the villains. So those Venom movies, that Morbius movie, did anyone ever see Madam Web, which came out earlier this year? I still have to see that. Is that really that bad? I'll see that one next. And then Kraven. So there's no other stuff after Kraven, apparently. This is the last one. And essentially, here's a basic kind of rundown of what happens. So Sergei Krakenov, and if I mispronounce any of these names, apologies. He's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I actually think did a pretty good job overall in the role. He's the Russian mobster's son who gets mauled by, and guys, spoilers, in case you want to go in blind to Kraven, he is saved by a magical potion. So essentially, okay, let's get back to the absurdity actually of what the father wanted to do. The father picks up his kids from school, tells them their mom killed herself and that she was weak. So I'm gonna fly you down to Ghana and have you shoot lions. Which on one hand is kind of based, but also it's kind of like, all right, I think part of it is like, and I think this actually is a point worth stopping on for a second. I'm gonna stop on it. What was it trying to address? Was it trying to address toxic masculinity? Was it trying to address grief? I think it was. The problem was it was almost too over the top. It was like, well, it was Russell Crowe, right? Did I have the actor right? I think it was Russell Crowe. Yeah, it was Russell Crowe plays Sergei Krakenov's father. They're essentially the bad guy, the Russian oligarch here. If you're trying to be a serious movie, be a serious movie. If you're trying to be Venom, you can still have those heartfelt moments without necessarily having to be delivering, I guess, a higher level insight. And I think what happened here was they tried to really go into that toxic masculinity kind of role of being a man in the family. And it almost went comical where I'm like, I started to laugh a little bit where it's like, your mom died, we're going to Ghana. I'm like, oh God, I should be laughing at this, right? But more or less, he is saved because of a magical potion that gives him lion powers. So he points his gun at the lion, more or less, this teenage version of Sergei who would become the Kraven. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to shoot the lion. And then Sergei's dad, again, Russell Crowe, goes... Sorry, I accidentally just hit a lamp above that. Sergei's dad just goes... And then goes, Sergei, run! And then the lion's like, dude, really? And then he chases after and mauls Sergei. And then this, random lady comes. And she is, also a teenager. And earlier in the movie, again, we're only 10 minutes in, was given a potion vial that, with no other context, would help someone. And that the moment would be coming faster than she expected. She's also given a deck of tarot cards. I think the only way to actually review this movie is to talk about the plot here. I really think so. So she saves him by putting a little bit of this special juice into his wounds, and one of the drops of blood from the lion, which is Maulium, drops in, and he ends up going transformation mode. It's a standard hero arc where he goes through this whole montage type thing and ends up with superhuman powers. So now, fast forwarding about 15, 20 years, Kraven is a vigilante hunting bad guys and protecting animals, which as a turtle, I will admit, is very much appreciated. So hats off to Kraven. Now, I will say he's probably only covering the tortoise population on the terrestrial realm. He probably is not protecting the turtles underneath the surface of the ocean. So if you are a turtle, stay vigilant out there. So, what else is happening in this movie? What is the basic plot of this movie? So essentially, and on this trip in Africa is a random other guy who wants revenge or something, the Rhino. Alexike, I'm just going to call him the Rhino, okay? So, Rhino kidnaps Sergei's brother, Dmitri. So he doesn't kidnap Sergei, and he doesn't really know at the time that, Kraven is actually Kraven. He just thinks he's Sergei. So Kraven has to team up to get his brother back, right? So who does he go to? He goes to Calypso, the black lady, the lady who was the black teen earlier that saved him. Fast forward 16 years now. She is a big law lawyer. So I don't mean, when I say big law, I don't mean kind of the law firm that you might see, that helps you with your taxes or a local civic issue down the street. I'm talking like the ones where you go in New York City and London and you go, that's Rothschild, Bono, and George, and Tim, and God, I'm messing this up. Okay, Crockett, Lee, and Ronnie, and Martin. God. The ones with 15 different names. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, he goes into one of those buildings wearing no shoes, drenched in water, because he was trying to run and intercept his brother who was being kidnapped just before. So I'm not sure if this is a cold transition from being covered in water into, hi, Calypso, you haven't seen me in 20 years. But I'm the dude you saved. And he hands her a tarot card. I'm laughing, but it's actually this is the movie. He hands her a tarot card to say thank you, and he asks for her help to team up and save Dmitri. Now, by the way, there's also, who is this guy? I wasn't familiar with this character. The Foreigner, is that his name? The Foreigner, Kraven. So I'm not sure if he is a big baddie in the... No, so I think he is a comic book character, yeah. So the Foreigner is essentially like this guy that's teamed up with the Rhino and wants to hurt Kraven because Kraven 30 years ago or something, a few years ago, murdered his daddy. I'm not exactly sure. I think that was shown, but I might have accidentally spaced out for that part. Anyway, though, he's teaming up, and his thing is he can take off his glasses, and when he takes off his glasses, it goes 1, 2, 3, and it goes super speed, kind of like Billy Maskmoff. Except it's not in the Disney Marvel, but in the Sony Marvel. He goes super speed, and then he's able to, beat the crap out of you. So he can show up behind you and then punch you. He can fire guns. You can see the examples. I actually kind of liked his vibe. I think he seemed really out of place. That's the thing. The character itself, I thought was actually a pretty good villain. I didn't get a good handle for kind of their connection between his motivations and his role with the Rhino. So let's get into some more things about this movie. Anyway, I think what are, oh God, we'll get into some absurdity here. Let's see. I'm just going over my notes quickly before we go in. Okay, so let's talk a few good things and then a few bad things. Anyway, so let's see. Aaron Taylor Johnson. I thought actually he did a good job. So he is probably the main reason to see this movie. I enjoyed it. I thought that he did what he was supposed to do, which is brutal action and apparently jumping around like a gorilla for parts of it. I thought the Rhino actually wasn't bad either. I thought he was actually really engaging while he was on the screen. I don't know if I believed him being a very scary character, though. I think the threat of the Rhino, kind of the Rhino's organization, was more scary than the actual Rhino itself. The actual Rhino itself kind of, went down relatively easily. Now let's get into the bad of this. So the movie is completely all over the place. All over the place. It's like romance, drama. It's part crime. It's superhero origin story. Like, I don't know where it's trying to end up in any of this. I don't know what it wants to be. And there's some really, really, really awful, just like, decisions, honestly, with some of these like plot points. It's like, let's talk about the big odd one. You don't see anyone in 30 years. And if you're not a lawyer, okay, that's fine. But pick some career, right, where you're at the relatively high up in your career. I'm going to keep hitting that. Relatively high up in your career. It takes place in a city. And imagine someone you haven't seen in 30 years come in and say, I need your help. You saved my life. I'm going on an adventure. I need to save my brother. Oh, by the way, I am a serial killer. Because he has to go over this part. He has to go over the part where he's a serial killer with her. Because he's murdering people that are hunting bad animals, right? So, let's see. Other things. I actually kind of liked how Aaron Taylor Johnson moved like an animal in different scenes. That was over the top, absurd, and probably a good way. There's some things like there was a scene where like they set up Calypso being able to have a archery pedigree, or is this like it made no sense? I don't know. So there was a ton of absurdity. I'm trying to think. If I went on to the absurdity for all this movie, this would be a 5-hour review. So I think I'm actually going to pause the absurdity for a second here. And I'm going to say, see it. If you go in like incredibly blazed, or you're going in expecting just kind of like a basic, extremely bizarre Marvel movie. If you go in expecting something a little bit different, that's a little bit over the top, and you embrace the absurdity of the plot, you might actually like it quite a bit. But that was a slog. Anyway, guys, we are going to end this review here. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. We're going to be doing more reviews. Oh, by the way, what am I going to be seeing this weekend? I am going to be seeing Interstellar. That is doing a re-release in IMAX. So if you're looking for something cool to see this weekend, maybe check that out yourself. I'm going to end it here, guys. Later. This is the GM Xperience. This is Misha. This is X Society. We are out.